For any investor, one of the most important lessons you can learn is the difference between simply competing in a market and actually building the market itself. Today, we're digging into the incredible story of how Alibaba defeated eBay in China. And let me tell you, it wasn't a playbook about competition, it was about building the fundamental infrastructure for commerce from the ground up.
So, let's set the scene. It's 2003. E-commerce in China is just getting started, and eBay is the absolute king of the hill. I mean, look at this. They have a massive 75% of the market. They're the shark in a brand new ocean. And then, you've got Taobao, Jack Ma's new little venture, with a tiny, almost insignificant 8%. Honestly, on paper, this isn't even a fight. It looks like it's over before it's even begun.
But then, this happened. In just 2 years, the entire landscape flips on its head. By 2006, eBay, the global giant, is packing its bags and shutting down its China website. This wasn't some slow, gradual decline, it was a total catastrophic collapse. Which brings us to the big question, the one every analyst was asking. How in the world did that happen?
Well, the answer wasn't just one thing. It was a really deliberate 6-part strategy. We're going to break down every piece of Alibaba's playbook, from their core philosophy all the way to the massive financial lesson that it teaches every single one of us.
Okay, first things first. It all started with this simple but incredibly powerful metaphor that really guided every decision Alibaba made.
You know what's so brilliant about this quote is that it's both an admission of weakness and a huge declaration of strength. Manu straight up that he couldn't beat eBay at their own game out in the global ocean, so he didn't even try. He changed the entire battlefield to his home turf, the Yangtze River, where having local knowledge wasn't just an advantage, it was the ultimate weapon.
So how exactly does a crocodile fight a shark? Well, you drag it out of the ocean and into the river. This is where we see the two companies go in completely different directions. Alibaba didn't set out to build a better eBay. They decided to build something entirely different, something custom-made to solve China's very unique problems. And this table just lays it out perfectly. Look at the contrast. eBay basically did a copy-paste of its successful American model. They brought in PayPal for payments, charged listing fees for revenue, used a clean Western-style interface, and even had their servers outside of China, which made the site slow to load. Taobao, they did the exact opposite on every single point. They built a payment system for a low-trust country, they offered free listings to get all the sellers on board, and they built an interface that, well, as one executive said, was usable for Chinese eyes. Suddenly, all of eBay's global strengths became huge local liabilities.
Now, of all the problems Taobao were solving, one was bigger than all the rest, and solving it became the absolute foundation of their entire empire. And that problem was simply trust.
You have to remember, this was a market where very few people had credit cards. This idea of settlement risk was a huge deal. People were just not comfortable sending their money to a complete stranger online, hoping that a product would show up. And eBay's PayPal, which was all about paying up front, just couldn't get around that fundamental fear. Alibaba's answer was Alipay, and its genius was just how simple it was. It was basically an escrow service. The buyer pays Alipay, not the seller. The money sits there. The seller sees the payment is secured, so they ship the product. The buyer gets the package, confirms everything's good, and only then does Alipay release the money. See? The system didn't require trust, it literally manufactured it. It built the missing piece of infrastructure that allowed commerce to happen safely. And just look at what happened. This one solution, built to solve a very specific local problem, scaled so ridiculously well that it blew past PayPal to become the biggest mobile payment platform in the entire world. This wasn't just a feature on a website, it was the beginning of a whole new financial empire. All right, let's move on to the second pillar of their strategy, how Taobao actually got people to use the platform in the first place.
So while eBay was doing what it always did, charging sellers a fee to list their items, Taobao made a crazy announcement. It was going to be free for 3 years. The key insight here is that Jack Ma wasn't worried about making money right away. He was obsessed with building the entire ecosystem of sellers first. He was building the supply. And eBay, well, they looked at the zero revenue competitor and just dismissed them. They thought it was a sign of weakness. They totally, completely misread the play.
So eBay used its big corporate muscle to try and block Taobao from all the major advertising websites. But that just made Taobao get scrappy and creative. They put a giant billboard up right across the street from eBay's main office in China. They even flew to eBay's own user conference in San Jose, handed out these bright orange Taobao bags, and lured people up to a hotel suite with the promise of free MP3 players. It was classic guerrilla warfare, fast, clever, and way more effective than eBay's expensive ad campaigns.
Okay, now here is where this story gets really powerful, especially if you're an investor. That victory over eBay, it wasn't a one-time thing. It was just the first time Alibaba used a playbook that they would use over and over again.
Just look at this pattern. It's so consistent. The logistics market in China was a total mess, so what did they do? They didn't build another delivery company. No, they built Cainiao, a data platform to connect and organize all the existing delivery companies. When businesses needed cloud computing, they built Alibaba Cloud. When they noticed users had all this cash just sitting in their Alipay accounts, they created Yuebao, a money market fund. Every single time, they found a point of friction in the market and built the missing infrastructure to solve it.
So the playbook becomes crystal clear, right? It's a deliberate method. Step 1, find what the market needs but isn't providing. Step 2, build the system that fixes it. And step 3, sit back and capture the value from the enormous amount of activity that then flows through the system you just built. So, what does this all mean in dollars and cents? What's the financial outcome when you back a company that thinks like this? Well, the numbers are just mind-boggling. It all started here. Back in 2000, Masayoshi Son from SoftBank invested $20 million in Alibaba. And get this, he made the decision after a meeting with Jack Ma that lasted only 6 minutes. At that point, Alibaba had zero revenue and no real business model. Fast forward to 2014, Alibaba goes public in what was then the biggest IPO in world history. And that initial $20 million check, it was now worth an estimated $75 billion. And it just kept going up. By 2020, that same stake was worth over $200 billion. That is, without a doubt, one of the greatest venture capital investments in the history of the world. And it all came from backing a philosophy of building, not just competing. So let's just be absolutely clear on the big takeaway here. Alibaba didn't win because they had more money or more power. They won because they had a more accurate diagnosis of the market. They understood what China fundamentally needed, and they built the tools for that economy, instead of just trying to sell a product that worked somewhere else. And that really leaves us with a final, critical question. When you're looking at any market, maybe the most important thing to ask isn't about who has the biggest market share today. Maybe the real question is, who is quietly, methodically, building the essential infrastructure that everyone else will depend on tomorrow? That's where you find the real value.